Coming up on The World Today. Downing Street apologises to Queen over lockdown parties the night before Prince Philip's funeral. Novak Djokovic races to avoid deportation after Australia cancels visa again. Ukraine government and embassy websites targeted in cyber attack. Hello and welcome to the programme. I'm Tenyola Shobowale. We begin in the UK, where Downing Street has apologised to Buckingham Palace for two staff parties the night before Prince Philip's funeral. The gatherings took place on April the 16th, 2021 and went on until the early hours. The Prime Minister's spokesman says it's deeply regrettable that the event took place at a time of national mourning.
UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson is facing further calls to resign after it emerged his staff held two leaving parties in number 10 Downing Street on the eve of Prince Philip's funeral. The Telegraph reports around 30 people were drinking alcohol and dancing until the early hours of the day. The next day, Queen Elizabeth sat alone at the funeral of her husband of 73 years, in line with social distancing rules.
Unsurprised, disappointed, let down. They're my immediate thoughts. And then I probably think that's probably endemic of what this government are about, what they believe in, how they treat the general public. So I think it's just another feather in his cap for his Prime Minister reign.
There's been a catalogue of other events, which has been sort of shoved under the carpet all this time. So God knows what else goes in that place. So I'm not surprised at all. What I am surprised is that this guy is still hanging on to power, despite all these nonsenses that he's been getting up to.
Downing Street has apologised to Buckingham Palace, calling the parties deeply regrettable. Prime Minister Johnson was not at either gathering, but it comes after it emerged several of the parties were held at number 10 when COVID restrictions limited social mixing. Opponents are calling for the Prime Minister to step down, and a small but growing number of Conservatives are publicly echoing this.
He's also apologised for that, and crucially for me, he said in hindsight, if he had his time again, he would have done things differently, and that to me is an acceptance from the Prime Minister that he did wrong, and therefore, to be consistent with what I've said before, I don't believe his position as Prime Minister and leader of the Conservative Party is tenable, and he does need to resign.
British Foreign Minister Liz Truss, however, says that real mistakes were made when parties were held during lockdown at Downing Street, but it's time to move on.
The Prime Minister apologised on Wednesday. He was very clear that mistakes have been made. But I do think we need to look at the overall position we're in as a country, the fact that he has delivered Brexit, that we are recovering from COVID. We've got one of the fastest growing economies now in the G7, and we're delivering the booster programme. And he has apologised. I think we now need to move on and talk about how we are going to sort out issues. I've spent the last 24 hours with the EU talking about sorting out the situation.
The latest parties have been added to the list of gatherings in government buildings being investigated by senior civil servant Sue Gray.
Joining us now is Tokunbo Olorundami, a political strategist and lecturer at Oxford Brookes University. Thank you so much for joining us on the programme.
Thank you for having me, Tenyola.
It seems the fire's getting hotter and hotter for the Prime Minister, especially with this revelation that a party was held the night before Prince Philip's funeral. How likely is Boris Johnson to survive this at this point?
Yes, it's getting really hot. The Boris Gate saga now has come full circle. And I agree with the Labour Party leader when he says the party is over. If you look at the timing of the event, people were really dying at that time. And this was just after Prince Philip also died and was about to be buried. So the timing shows lack of judgment. He is a really good politician. So I wouldn't, it's 50-50 for me. I think he may survive, but there's a key decision that has to be made before it becomes really clear. And that's the inside of the Tory party turning outside against him. If that happens, he's over.
Yeah, but so how long is that likely to last? So far, it seems Cabinet isn't plotting against him. But the danger hasn't passed yet, has it?
The danger has not come full circle yet. Once we begin to see that there's fresh ambition to take that seat within the Tory party, that is when the real danger begins. If we get 54, MPs to now send that letter to the 1922 committee, Boris Johnson will have to fall on his sword.
What would it mean for a change in government at this point in time, with the COVID-19 pandemic and other issues like Ukraine?
Yes, it's going to be a very difficult one, especially for the Tory party. Finding a leader at this time will destabilize the system, will destabilize the economy. And you see, there's an ongoing negotiation, even for the Brexit and the Ukraine situation that you have already mentioned, but it will be a struggle. First, the Tory guys need to get their acts together to find somebody who's formidable, someone who can provide a fresh sense of confidence about the party. Then we have the Labour, who will be on the side and then can actually push for fresh election. And we'll have to now press the reset button and start all over with a new premiership.
And what are your predictions as the fire gets hotter and hotter? Do you think Boris Johnson will resign?
I think Boris Johnson is a very fine politician. He will be working really hard right now, but this is a really bad one. Nobody's really coming out to say anything that gives a lot of confidence. They have agreed that wrongs have been made. At a time where others were being put behind bars for breaking the rules, he's broken the rule. He needs to go down.
And with that, is the British public, how likely are they to continue to have trust in the Prime Minister when he himself has been found to be breaking the rules to a certain point?
You're very right to say that. The British system is built on steadiness of the law and confidence in the law and respect for it. Boris Johnson has broken the law. The British people are already showing signs of that loss of confidence. We were here the last time talking about the election that the Tory lost, and that is one first sign. I predict that the second sign will be that call for election. But Boris Johnson is not likely to survive this one. But he's a fine politician, and on that basis, I'm hoping he will find a way through.
All right, then, Mr. Tokunbo Olorodami, thank you so much for your thoughts on the program.
Thank you for having me.
Or to another man on the fire, Novak Djokovic is set to be detained on Saturday after Australia cancelled his visa for a second time in a dispute over his right to remain in the country unvaccinated. The decision on health and good order grounds means he faces deportation and a 3-year visa ban. Djokovic's lawyer called the decision irrational and will appeal. The men's tennis #1 is still scheduled to play in the Australian Open in Melbourne on Monday. Meanwhile, Andy Murray has expressed sympathy for Djokovic but encourages people to get vaccinated against COVID-19. Australians have also been reacting to the latest decision to cancel the tennis player's visa for a second time. The move has prompted a mixture of responses in Melbourne, with residents arguing strongly that he should be allowed to play at the Australian Open or made to leave the country.
I think some people are going to like it, but I think it's an... I think some people are going to like it, but I think it's an absolute outrage. The man just wants to play tennis. And he already had the flu, so why not? He already had COVID, so he's fine, he's exempted. And I think the local community of Serbians aren't going to take it very well either. Yeah.
I think that the minister cancelling the visa is 100% the right decision. I think that it's unfair that he gets to stay in Australia and have his visa. I think it might be because, he's a famous tennis player and a white man, rich white man. And I think that's 100% unfair that he gets that privilege. And he gets, taxpayers' money on his case when there's like people, you know, losing their jobs and, you know, it's a really difficult time, and I feel like the government should be putting their money and time and effort elsewhere. And I think it was 100% the right idea for, them to cancel his visa.
Oh, absolutely. I think that you find that I reckon out of every 10 Victorians that you actually talk to, I reckon 8 of them would have the same response. I think at the end of the day, you know what, we've been through a pretty rough 12 months, if not 18 months. As far as I'm concerned, if the rules are there in place, why shouldn't they involve an international person coming in? Whether or not you're an international superstar, tennis, rock star, music, it's all the same. At the end of the day, those rules are in place. If you don't apply by them, then why should you not be deported? So as far as I'm concerned, yep, see you later.
Opinion, I'd think like it was a good decision to finally send him back, but it probably should have been done a bit earlier. But the way, like, we've got, like, obviously working, we had a thing come in mid-October where we had to get vaccinated, otherwise we weren't able to work at all. So it's been a tough time for most workers here in Australia. So to see him come on without being vaccinated and being allowed to work in Victoria was kind of a shit kick in the face for all us workers and stuff like that. So to finally see it come to a decision to get rid of him, I'm happy for. Because before that, I really didn't feel like coming to the tennis, because it's like, done all this work, staying at home, not being able to work and all this. So I didn't really want to get the vaccine either, and had to get that just to play by the rules. So to see someone come and just abuse the system, like, yeah, it wasn't good. But to finally see him go away is good now.
Some mixed reactions there to the situation from Australians. But we have immigration lawyer Dayo Fadino joining us for a better understanding of the situation. Mr. Fadino, thank you so much for joining us. We spoke earlier in the week, and now this. Are you in any way surprised by the latest move by the Australian immigration?
Good afternoon, Tony. No, I am not quite surprised. I think I stated quite clearly on Tuesday that there's a very high probability that Djokovic's visa would be cancelled. So it's not coming as a surprise at all, because the situation about this very very unfortunate situation unfolding right now to do with the Australia tennis is this. You see, and the philosophical essence of any law and relevance of any law is based on the fact that that law should be followed, should be respected, and should be applied equally and authoritatively. No human being is above the law. Djokovic actually broke the law, and he should face the consequences, because no matter who you are, whether you are the top tennis player in the world or the richest man in the world, everybody has to actually obey and apply, obey and respect that law. So that's the situation with the world-class tennis player. He would just have to actually bear the consequences of the fact that he broke the law by lying, by doing things that he was not meant to be doing, lying about the forms he's completed. So unfortunately, the law would have to actually take its course, and no matter whose goose is gold, he would no doubt have to bear the consequences.
But what happens next now? What options are left for him?
Well, I'm aware of the fact that that there's going to be a hearing very, very late tonight, Australian time. I think at about 11 p.m. Late hearing to at least, I think he's appealed, and it's now going to be going before the federal court in Australia. If anything should, if the federal court in Australia should also deny his appeal, it would have no choice but to actually go back to Serbia. It's as simple as that, because the fact is that there are so many people who are trying to respect what the rules are about COVID. There are so many people who have not been able to at least see their family family members for months, for years. And here comes this man with a baggage of lies and unvaccinated, and not thinking of the consequences of what he's doing. And one of the last thing, I think is also, if he should be allowed to stay to play tennis and be given back this visa, it will be sending the wrong message to the hardcore, anti-vaccine movement, who believe that he's more or less like a symbol, saying what they want to hear. And in the public interest, that shouldn't be happening at all, because the moment you allow him to at least get back his visa and play tennis, what people will be saying is, how would this then apply to me or to so many people who don't believe in the vaccine in the first place? So for that public interest reason alone, I doubt whether the federal courts would allow his appeal.
All right, then, immigration lawyer Mr. Dayo Fadino, thank you so much for joining us on the program.
It's a pleasure, Tenny. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Still ahead. Thanks for staying with us. Some updates from around the world on the COVID-19 pandemic now. Sweden's Prime Minister tested positive for COVID, plus China's Tianjin to start third-round citywide COVID-19 testing after detecting new cluster infections. Here's the global update.
Swedish Social Democratic Prime Minister Magdalena Andersson has tested positive for COVID-19 as a growing wave of infections swept the country, driven by the more contagious Omicron variant. Andersson is one of several party leaders who have tested positive for the virus in the wake of a debate in Parliament earlier this week, while Sweden's King, Queen and Crown Princess have all been hit with infections this month. Elsewhere, Hong Kong has announced that it will suspend for a month transit flights from around 150 countries and territories considered high risk because of the coronavirus, deepening the global financial hub's isolation. The move comes as the city has seen around 50 cases of the fast-spreading Omicron since the end of last year. North China's Tianjin municipality will launch its third round of citywide nucleic acid testing on Saturday after 44 people tested positive for COVID-19 in its second round of mass testing. The municipality of 13.9 million people that neighbors Beijing has conducted 2 rounds of citywide mass testing. In the meantime, the World Health Organization says it's currently reviewing a COVID-19 antiviral oral pill, and a recommendation will likely be made in early February.
So our GDG has already deliberated on the drug molnupiravir, and you can expect to see an update with that new recommendation coming at the beginning of February. And then our GDG is also getting ready to review the data on nirmatrelvir, ritonavir, which is the other oral antiviral that has had data published. And we will be looking at that data in early February for publication, likely at the end of February.
And the head of South Africa's Medical Research Council says Johnson & Johnson COVID-19 vaccine booster shot is 84% effective in protecting against being hospitalized by the Omicron variant for 1 to 2 months after it's received.
In terms of vaccine effectiveness, we're very excited that we saw great protection against hospital admission in our healthcare workers. And so this slide just shows you, as we followed up healthcare workers who were boosted and looked at the durability of the vaccine. So in the healthcare workers that had been boosted just between 0 and 13 days, because your immune system is evolving, we saw 63% protection against hospital admission. In those who had been boosted between 14 and 27 days, we saw an 84% vaccine effectiveness. And we see that this kind of vaccine effectiveness is maintained beyond up to 2 months. And so we are refreshing this data, but very happy to report very high levels of vaccine effectiveness against the Omicron in South Africa. In fact, this is the world's first evidence of vaccine effectiveness with using the J&J vaccine.
The study involved 477,234 healthcare workers, all of them vaccinated with a J&J shot, of whom 236,000, roughly half, had received the J&J booster shot.
The Ukrainian government has accused Russia of being behind a cyber attack on dozens of official websites. About 70 government websites were temporarily down in the largest such attack on Ukraine in 4 years. Before the sites went offline, a message appeared warning Ukrainians to prepare for the worst. Russia has not commented on the hack.
This morning we have heard the news about a hybrid attack against Ukraine's government office's homepage. That is exactly one of the things that we have warned for and that we are afraid of, that kind of hybrid or cyber attacks. Of course, we have to see who is responsible for it, and it's also something that is heightening the tension. And that's why we have to be very firm in our messages to Russia, that if there are attacks against Ukraine, we will be very harsh and very strong and robust in our response.
Italian politicians and European authorities have joined ordinary citizens to pay their respects to European Parliament President David Sassoli, who died this week. Italian President and Prime Minister, EU Commission President and European Council President were among the EU's authorities to pay homage to Sassoli, who died in a cancer clinic in northeastern Italy on Tuesday, aged 65. During an emotional speech to remember her father's humanity, Sassoli's daughter, Livia, remembered how her father wanted a more equitable and fair Europe. Well, on a lighter note, a talented 3-year-old girl from North China's Hebei province has proven herself to be a natural star of snowboarding after just 12 days of practice, with her impressive skills on the slopes leaving many fellow ski fans astounded. With the Beijing 2022 Winter Olympics fast approaching, interest in snow and ice sports in China has seen a major upsurge in popularity among people of all age groups in China, including many children. Despite her tender age, the adorable child is seemingly already at a much higher level than a number of other aspiring snowboarders. Amazing. And that's the program today. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Tenyo Olash Shibowale. Have a lovely weekend.